Thanks for being here. Thanks for inviting me as well. Really great to have an opportunity to talk to you. I'm Dave Wardell. I work for InfoGrid. We're a smart buildings technology company, and you can come and find out what that actually means with the team. We've got a team of great people here. Happy to talk to you if you have the time. I'm going to start with a confession. I'm a bit humbled, and I feel a bit of a fraud standing talking to a group of professionals who know all about workplaces and facilities management. I'm not a facilities manager, and I hence feel a bit of a fraud. I'm just taking the opportunity. So being a tech guy, talking to facilities management and workplace experts, I'm taking this opportunity to caveat two things, to caveat that for two reasons, I should say. Firstly, because I want to be able to dodge any really difficult questions that you might have at the end of these slides. But also, secondly, I do want to say that any anecdotes that I talk about in this slide deck, they're not mine. They're stolen ruthlessly from other facilities management and workplace professionals. They're not my stories. So I take no credit for them whatsoever. But this presentation is about the world of facilities management, and in particular the ever broadening roles and responsibilities of facilities managers. And somebody clever once said that change is constant, but as far as I can see in the world of facilities management, change seems to be accelerating. And I think that personally, I can't see that anything is going to change that. So I think few would argue that 10 years ago, the facilities manager role was much simpler than it is today. I think, even though I'm not an expert, I think I can get away with that. More procedural and less strategic, always grounded in great service, but the scope and the topics that facilities managers had to deal with then was far fewer than today. Of course, there have always been contracts and agreements to stress about. That's always been a key part of the FM role, and ensuring that the built environment is just right for the owners and the occupiers and the tenants is always been a key part of the role, making sure that the building is just in that Goldilocks zone. Of course, a key part of facilities management is dealing with issues. And interestingly, when we talk to facilities managers, incidents seem to be quite an exciting and key part of their role. And one facilities manager told me and the team quite recently about a time when a 20-inch water main burst in the building across the street from his building, and then almost with relish and energy talked about how it filled up the 2 basement floors of his building in the City of London. And he said, we had to mobilize fast. We had to mobilize the whole team, and really get behind the emergency. And he kind of almost seemed to be energized and relished in this opportunity to do the right thing for his customer. And so I think in the facilities manager world, variety definitely is the spice of life. I think that's definitely true. So as well as incidents, there are always business as usual procedures to take care of. Any guesses? Like Legionella testing, and so that is always part of keeping on top of BAU. There's always compliance to perpetually stay on top of, and that's again another key part of a facilities manager's role. That's never gone away. And of course, and I'll talk a little bit more about that kind of BAU activity a bit later in the presentation. Of course, keeping tenants happy is obviously really important. In the past, there was less contact with the tenants, the occupiers, of a building than there is now. It's really normal now. Facilities managers could be 10 years ago, they could be a bit more arm's length from a workplace tenant. Today, it's really part of the everyday world of facilities management. Keeping everybody happy in the building, it's obviously, again, the service. The thing that hasn't changed through this is that service excellence is always a key part of it. Our world continues to change. And events, I put this in just to symbolise an event. Events have always been a really key part of making sure that you maximise the value from a building and from a workplace. But facilities managers and those of you that work in FM in London will have been involved in some of the really big events of the past, like the Jubilee celebrations, for example, and that might have been the Diamond, now Platinum. 2012 Olympics was a huge one-off opportunity for events that facilities managers just had to deal with at the time. And one of the facilities managers that I spoke to, he'd done an event with like 48,000 people attending during the Olympics. Yeah, huge, massive one-off. But at a more BAU level, things like breakfasts, breakfast briefings, those kinds of events within a building, within a workplace, are just day-to-day bread and butter or donuts for an FM. And then on top of that, of course, return to work. And earlier we heard from the panel and from previous presenters about the return to work and what that meant. Facilities managers now have to be experts in virology as well as doing all of these other things that we've got here. Again, another challenge on top of their day-to-day work. They have to be experts in yoga and mindfulness, something which now is incredibly important and much more day-to-day in the lives of all of us in a working environment. And last but not least, to add to the portfolio, the roles and responsibilities of facilities management, you also have to be experts in pets. And a facilities manager, and I could have picked any number of bonkers examples, but pets was one that came up a few times. And one facilities manager told me a couple of weeks ago that one of his tenants had asked if they could have a cuddle the puppies morning designed to help well-being and reduce stress in their team. Not reducing stress of the facilities manager, though, in that particular case. So all of this growing demand on what was a relatively simple role. But on top of all of those things, there's some really big strategic stuff that's going on, and we've been talking about that today. So who could have foreseen the scale, the importance of employee well-being? Employer brand and employee value proposition, those words were not around even 2 years ago. The Great Resignation, which one of the speakers earlier was talking about, the Gen Z revolution, the return to a new hybrid working normality, they've driven new strategies, new teams, new consulting practices, frankly, and new board level positions in employers. And facilities management that underpins everything that those teams and those initiatives need to deliver. And on top of that, the acceleration of the sustainability changes isn't as surprising. So governments, under increasing pressure from their electorates, are forced to bring in increasingly tougher ESG and sustainability rules. Big employers, as part of those big brand and employee talent programs, are bringing forward, being much more aggressive about net zero targets. And what we see is that whereas a year or two ago, net zero could have been achieved with things like offsetting, no longer, not enough. So actual energy reduction that's visible on the ground to employees and to investors, again, right at the heart of the facilities management world. And that plays out particularly in ESG compliance Although it's nascent, it's brought in a raft of new standards. There's tons of new acronyms to get used to and to try and understand. And facilities management is at the heart of compliance and reporting. And so what we're seeing is that at the moment, there's a focus on ESG around that reporting area and compliance. Increasingly, it's shifting a lot to the kind of so what question. So if you can understand the sustainability, the energy consumption of a building, so what? What do you do about it? How do you actually make it less than it was this time last month or the month before? So we're seeing a huge sway of movement in the industry towards the reduction of energy consumption, particularly as the bills are so high at the moment. But underpinning an ESG strategy, we're seeing a lot more of the reporting turning into reduction initiatives. After all, 39% of greenhouse gases are caused by the built environment. And as human beings, we spend 90% of our time inside buildings. So it's a huge challenge. I also found out that 80%, I found out this a couple of weeks ago, 80% of the world's existing commercial buildings, that building stock will still be in place in 50 years' time. And because, of course, so much of it is so old. And what that means is, and the other really interesting point, is that retrofitting, actually from a carbon investment perspective, returns 7.5 times quicker than a new build. So being able to control and manage the sustainability and the energy efficiency and the healthiness of the workplace of the existing portfolio is critical. So to finish on this point, proving and boards being able to prove that they're delivering sustainability improvements, again, underpinned by facilities managers. So really those key big strategies, what that means is that for the FM function, increasingly they are now, and they need to be, a strategic partnership with a business. And how can facilities management be expected to deliver against all of those huge number of growing demands on their time, particularly at that strategic end? It's a huge addition to what was traditionally a relatively simple role. But while all that's been going on, there's been a data revolution happening. Digital transformation has reached every part of every business and is now transforming the workplace environment and beginning to transform the workplace environment. And this is the territory that I'm a bit more familiar with. So as consumers, we are really comfortable and aware of how data-driven our lives have become. And so even in our home environment, increasingly with systems like Hive and Nest and Philips Hue and other things, our home environment is increasingly data-driven. So our heating and our lighting, our entertainment systems, our security, even reordering our food is a lot more data-driven than it used to. And so we as consumers are much more used to being data-driven. And the workplace environment arguably is the last bastion of where data hasn't penetrated and analytics hasn't yet penetrated in ways that it has in other areas. Someone said to me that buildings are a data black hole. They're the last place where data exists less richly. And so in the workplace, rapid advancements have been going on in sensor technology, in data capture, and in artificial intelligence that now means that insights about a building and about a workplace and the environment, they're now able to be surfaced where previously they were completely invisible. So imagine a world where your building would be able to automatically find its optimum levels of air quality, virus risk, energy usage, cleaning, water usage, space utilization, OPEX, employee NPS, and. Imagine if that data and those insights were able to be surfaced real time to landlords, to tenants, to employees for their own use, so they can see how that building performed from the perspective of cost efficiency, if you're a landlord, healthiness, and well-being from the perspective of employees, or sustainability from the perspective of the building owner. What if you could see how that building compared to other buildings in the portfolio, or on the campus, or in the city, or the country, the region, or even globally? It's one thing to be able to say building X is burning so many tons of CO2, and the one next door on the same campus is burning Y tons of CO2. It's a very interesting piece of information that you can find out. If building X has got twice as many people in it, is that now such a problem? So the bringing together of data to be able to surface those insights is now, it's a lot more available, and it's a lot more insightful, and it's now driving a lot more decisioning. So this vision, we see this vision, we're not there yet though, but we are on a journey to get to that place. So until we achieve that vision, there are already solutions and systems in place that are delivering some of those needed advancements. And so this in turn means that insights are surfaced automatically, decision making is much, much better, benefits flow much more quickly, and that leaves facilities management to focus on those really high value strategic tasks. And so that means that they can ensure two things. Firstly, that the value and the sustainability of the asset is improved. And secondly, that the building is a high quality, flexible, healthy, and great place to work. And so as an example, I have here the Edge in Amsterdam is cited as the world's smartest building, and it utilizes Internet of Things technology to constantly optimize and create adaptable and intelligent workspaces, and I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about this kind of technology. So finally, if buildings can automate their own decisioning, if they can reduce or eliminate the manual workload of reporting, compliance, management of business as usual workplace environment processes, that means, of course, that facilities management gets to be that strategic partner for their customers, delivering the highest possible value as a partner. And that is where I end.